Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Gwen Darling with Healthcare IT Central. I am joined today by Brian Johnson, who is ForMed Approved Director of Online Training, and Wendy Whitmore, CIO of ForMed Approved. Wendy and Brian, thank you both so much for scheduling this time with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Since Healthcare IT Central has partnered with ForMed, we've had a lot of interest in your online programs and in ForMed. And with interest comes questions, so we've scheduled a series of brief webinars to address and answer those questions. So this week's focus is on ForMed's ICD-10 Certificate of Proficiency course. First of all, before we get into the specifics of this course, Brian, if you don't mind kind of giving us an overview exactly what is ForMed training?
So ForMed Approved's training program is entirely online. And we'll get into this a little bit more in terms of how the training works. But it's self-paced training written by industry experts that really designed for people in professional fields that they can learn at their own pace, absorb the material through our 10-10-10 learning method, which we'll describe more in a moment. But it's really a solution designed for today's busy professionals to get the training they need on their own schedule.
Okay, great. And you offer courses ranging from this ICD-10 that we're going to concentrate on today, and what other courses just kind of generally do you offer?
Yeah, so ForMed Approved specializes in health IT. So we have our ICD-10 course that we're going to talk about today, but we also train on HIPAA, both for security professionals and for members of the workforce. We provide meaningful use training, which is especially attractive to consultants and clinicians, especially as stage 2 approaches. We have a number of EHR courses, including our sort of introductory course, which is the Certified EHR Office Professional course. These courses all provide the student with access to a live certified EHR. It's not a simulation. It's a fully complete EHR that students are able to do workflow exercises in. We also have an EHR project management course called CEMP. We have a EHR technology professional course, which is really designed for people who are IT specialists who want to learn more about health IT. In addition, we have a number of other courses around employment in health IT, sales in health IT, and several other offerings around things like security, PCI DSS, and other courses. But our core expertise is in health IT, and that's really the focus of most of our content.
Okay. Great, which is, of course, why Healthcare IT Central has partnered with ForMed because of the content. So Wendy, maybe you can let us know what types of employers typically recognize the ForMed training.
Well, I'm gonna jump ahead to that slide, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth a little bit. I did include a slide about that because I think for your audience in particular, it's important to mention. And this slide represents a handful of some of our partners, just to give your audience an idea of the kinds of employers that do recognize our certifications and our training, and do recommend our certifications and training to their members, their employees, staff, etc. So we have medical associations, a number of those who have partnered with us and who have recognized our certifications for their organization, for their membership. Technology companies, RECs, Regional Extension Centers. One of our recent REC partnerships is with the California Regional Extension Center, CalHIPSO, which I've included on this slide. Lab services companies like Moraka Life Sciences provide our training to their staff, but also recognize our training as an employer. Various universities, educational sites, publishing groups, and medical practices that have hired our graduates of our GAP training programs and who have recognized our training as relevant to their operations.
Okay.
And if we could just hop back, let's look at a couple of the slides we skipped because it'll give people a little bit more information about what we were talking about. Now this slide, I think we covered most of it, except I do think we should mention that our courses, nearly all of the courses are accredited for nursing CEUs through ANCC, if we have any nurses on the line. They're also accredited for college credit through ICET. And then a particular interest for our subject today is that the ICD-10 course is accredited for a HEMA credit. So that, for anyone who's a coder, that CEU should be valuable to them as well. As I was saying before, you can see that our training is self-paced, that it's been developed by industry experts, and it covers HIM, HIT, EHR, and HIPAA issues. If you could just hop ahead for me, Wendy. Just a quick note on how the training works. As I was saying, anyone who signs up for one of our courses gets a unique login to our learning system. The learning system is fully SCORM compliant, which means that you move through it and it tracks your completion. So if you need to go do something else and you come back, it resumes exactly where you left off. And the way our training works is through what we call the 10-10-10 method. So a course is made up of a number of modules. Each module consists of a 10-minute text lesson. Tends to be about 1,000 words, but the idea is that someone can read it through in about 10 minutes. Then the same content is covered in a multimedia review. It's a video that sort of bulleted with, covers the main subjects of the text lesson, but gives people another shot at it in a different form. And then we have a quick 10-question quiz at the end of the module that just makes sure that the student has grasp the content before they move on. And the reason why we use this method is it gives people different ways to learn the content, but it also has been shown that it really maximizes retention. So when people get to the final exam at the end of the course, they are well prepared for it, partly because the final exam is made up of questions from the quizzes anyway. So it really gives people a way to learn the content quickly and effectively.
That's the part. I think that 10-10-10 method is so effective. I personally went through your recruiter course just to see, the format and the training model, and really liked the quizzes, because then you can see for yourself, whoops, there's something that I didn't quite grasp before, so you can go back and re-review. Yeah. Which that's what I just think that's excellent.
Yeah, and the nice thing too, as you were saying, is that if you find that you haven't grasped a concept, you can go back and review a module as many times as you want. So it truly is self-paced. People can move at the speed they're comfortable with until they feel that they've grasped the information.
And another question that we often have about the 10-10-10 method is, well, that's that's a 30-minute module. How many of those are included on average in each course? That ranges in each course from anywhere from 10 to 25 modules total for every course, depending upon the level of the course. So you can expect, to add up that 30 minutes through that number of modules based on the course that's presented.
Okay. Or if you're a little slow in some section, it may be a little more than 30 minutes.
Right. Right. And some people are faster, interestingly. We do have a lot of people that move through even faster than that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about ICD-10, which of course is I mean, you can't move without hearing ICD-10 and everything that's going on with it. But what specifically is going on right now in ICD-10 that makes this course so particularly timely and relevant?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it a buzz, but maybe the word is rumble. There's growing awareness of the fact that ICD-10 is coming, and it's coming relatively soon now. So the deadline set by the government is October 2014. And what that means is that essentially all billing claims that are made that would use ICD-9 codes on the end of September 2014, those ICD-9 codes will no longer be accepted in October 2014. So every practice, every healthcare organization across the United States has to be ready to use ICD-10 codes starting in October of next year. Obviously, that's a huge undertaking. CMS actually delayed the transition once because it is such a large undertaking, and some folks are desperately hoping that they'll delay it again, but CMS has said clearly that they're not going to delay it. People have had plenty of time to prepare. So people need to get ready, but this provides a great opportunity for people in the healthcare workforce, which we'll get into more detail on that momentarily. Let's talk a little bit about why ICD-10 is different and how this course helps people understand the coding set. and then it'll help us understand why there's such an opportunity for folks.
Great.
Okay? So ICD-10, part of why people are intimidated by it is it's a pretty big transition from ICD-9. You know, for people who have some familiarity with ICD-9, we've been using it here in the United States for a long time, and ICD-10 is significantly more complex. One of the things that people talk about a lot is you're going from somewhere in the neighborhood of 17,000 codes in ICD-9-CM to north of 60,000 codes in ICD-10-CM. One of the reasons why is that ICD-10-CM has a lot more specificity in the codes. Sometimes there's much greater anatomical precision. There's elements in the coding set that let you code for laterality, which is new as well. So whereas the old coding set, you know, you have some problem with the kidneys now. You can specify which kidney it is. So the coding set itself is definitely more complex, but the good news is that for people who are familiar with coding and billing, it is definitely recognizable. Many things have stayed the same. And so the course that we're describing today, the CICP course, is designed for people who have coding and billing background. They're familiar with ICD-9, and this course is a bridge that enables them to take their existing knowledge and translate it into ICD-10. So the course discusses the changes to the conventions. There's some sort of big changes, and for instance, it moves to an alphanumeric code rather than a strictly numerical code. It's 7 digits instead of the shorter ICD-9 code. So it discusses those global changes, and then it focuses on particular chapters of the coding set. ICD-10 is organized into these distinct chapters by letter, and it really focuses on the ones that have major changes. So there's global changes to the coding set, and it will help you understand that, and then it sort of focuses in on those chapters where there's big changes. For instance, there's some really significant changes to how injuries are recorded, and so it goes into a lot of detail about that. There's changes to areas like mental health, pregnancy, etc. So it goes through all of those changes, and then it states, you know, well, this chapter we're going to go ahead and skip this because it maps pretty straightforwardly from ICD-9. So it's really designed to be efficient and target those areas that the coder needs to know to move on to ICD-10. I should mention the course was authored and reviewed by top experts in ICD coding, so really great people who've done excellent work on this. Again, we talked about the ForMed learning system. One of the things that's convenient about this, so people will go through, there's video introductions to each of the major units, then they look at the text, then they have to put in coding when they're tested. There's video reviews, as we were saying before. Also, all of the ICD-10 manuals are available for download from our learning system. You can get those from the CDC, but it's all in one place for you. We've made it very convenient. And then, as we were saying before, completion of the course awards 10 AHIMA CEUs to the student. So anyone who's in the AHIMA world as a coder will certainly find that valuable.
And one of the points that I think is important on this bullet list is that as healthcare employers, and we have a lot of connection, and as Gwen will attest, to the employer community, healthcare employers in the billing and coding universe in all different areas of healthcare will be looking for this skill when hiring for new positions. So if you have prepared, even though the actual deadline isn't until October of 2014, if you're well prepared in advance with this training, that's going to give you a leg up in your job opportunities.
Yeah, and I think we cover that in the next slide as well. So this describes who would benefit, and then the following slide will discuss a little bit more in depth about why it would be a benefit to folks on this list. Who is the course designed for? Well, the course was originally targeted, and it's sort of its core audience is for those professional coders, or really anyone who works in billing and coding and needs to understand ICD-10. So those folks, you know, immediate benefit to them to be up on the changes. But it's also useful for other people as well. So maybe there's people on the line who have some experience in coding and billing. They have the basics of ICD-9 down, but they're interested in moving in a new direction. There's a lot of opportunity around ICD-10 as the deadline approaches. This would be a great way for them to sort of jump out and get ahead on seizing that opportunity around ICD-10, which
Your practice managers, those folks who are, who can talk the talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For anyone who's involved in management, who is going to be involved with this transition for a practice, they need to understand ICD-10 now, and this would be a great way to understand what's going to be involved, what the scope of the project's going to be. So really anyone in a project management role around ICD-10 should look at this course because, as I said, it's targeted. It'll give them what they need in a relatively, a contained training period, but it'll get them ahead and help them know what they need to know. And then also clinicians. There's a number of clinicians. The involvement of a clinician in billing is going to vary wildly, but for clinicians who are going to be ICD-10 champions for their practice, this would be a great way to start their training on it.
Absolutely. And with that said, I should just also mention that we are in the process of mounting an ICD-10 course that is specific to the clinical community with a little less detail about the coder level information that is included in this course. That is, targeted for, I believe, toward the end of next month for that rollout. But that course does not have, obviously, the level of detail that this course does, nor does it carry that coder biller proficiency status.
Right. So, I mean, you could go either way. If I were a clinician, I'd probably want to take this course, frankly, because I'd want that detailed knowledge of the coding. Right. But both would be a good option for folks, depending on what the role they're going to play is. And then here, of course, is the... Go ahead,
Brian.
The million-dollar question.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to just kind of add to your point about project management. Lately on Healthcare IT Central, I've been seeing just a ton of new opportunities for ICD-10 project managers, specifically ICD-10 project managers. So that is an opportunity when candidates come to me and say, how can I be more competitive? Anticipating future needs and getting yourself, positioned for those needs is always top on my list. So I think absolutely project management professionals would benefit from this course.
Yes, and those people are going to be in demand right now because as the second bullet states there on the screen we're on now, many practices and healthcare organizations are really in a planning stage right now around ICD-10, and if they're not, they really need to be. So if you can show that you've got, and as we're going to discuss here, I think this course and showing that you've got ICD-10 proficiency could be a career boost for just about anybody in healthcare these days because there's so much concern around it.
Right. And there's not a lot of front-loaded training. I mean, not a lot of people have gotten ahead of this.
Right. So if you can get ahead, you're really going to stand out. So for those organizations that have begun their planning, they will need help from people, and anyone who can get on deck and have that ICD-10 skills that they're looking for, that'll be a huge boost, I would think, to your resume. As we were saying, coders and billers, it goes without saying, they've got to get ready. So they absolutely need to get this training well before October of next year because ICD-9 is dying. ICD-10 is going to be the new law of the land. So they really need to get ahead on that. As I was saying, there's practices now that are already scrambling around trying to find people who can help them wrap their brains around ICD-10 and get ready for the transition. So whether you're a consultant or you're a clinician, if you can show that you've got that ICD-10 training and you can help them understand what they need to do, I think that will be very attractive to employers.
Well, and I'm just going to pipe up, Gwen, and just say that from my perspective, if the question in someone's mind is, why would I take the Formed course versus another potential ICD-10 course, my answer to that question is that our method of training that we mentioned before, which is that kind of bite-sized learning and process-managed training method, is really, really unique. You're not going to find that model of training in any other learning platform that we are aware of, and we're pretty plugged into the industry. So it helps with a high level of retention, and this is thick information. This is a lot of heavy-duty information. And if you can retain it at a higher level because you're learning it using our process method, our multimedia plus bite-sized module format with constant quizzing and reviewing, my feeling is that anybody who takes this course has a much higher potential for retention than other courses that are on the market right now.
Okay. Well, I agree. I get approached and have been approached in the past by a lot of potential educational partners and have resisted because I have not been able to truly feel comfortable with the training methods and be able to endorse them as fully as I have been with ForMed. So you don't have to convince me of training methods. Brian, let's talk about logistics for a minute, and then we can take any questions that we might have not been able to answer yet. How would someone register for the course and get started?
Well, thanks, Gwen. It's very easy. Our process is fully automatic. So they would visit, for Health IT Central, they would visit your storefront, and we can provide that URL here in a minute, and simply add the course to their shopping bag, use your HITC discount code to get that 20% discount, and then their shopping bag will be updated, process their payment, and then what happens is our learning system will send that individual an email inviting them to log in. They log into the learning system, create a password, set up their profile, whatever they want to do on that, and then they can begin training instantly. So, I mean, you can go buy this thing now, be in the course in 10 minutes, and it's really up to you how quickly you proceed through it.
Great, and it's accessible 24/7 because it's all online, correct?
Absolutely.
That's correct, and it's a full year license. So the reason that that's important, particularly for ICD coding, is that...
No, that was my fault. I didn't make it.
You can come back through the course and refresh throughout that one-year license that you're issued for every single course. So every course that we offer at this 449 level, at this certificate and certification level, these courses are all accessible for a full year. And that, you can come back and utilize the manuals that are linked through. You can come back and review individual lessons if you need to. All kinds of benefit to being able to have that full annual access 24/7.
We also have great customer support in the sense of technical support, but also answering your questions. So we have a live chat button that's throughout the learning system that you can talk to our experts here at ForMed Approved, whether you're having a difficulty with a system of some kind, or if you have a question about the course. If they don't know the answer off the top of their heads, they'll get in touch with me, and I'll be able to provide that answer to you. You can also call us here at ForMed Approved. So we're constantly interacting with students to give them the information they need.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I guess at this point I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian, to see if there's any questions from the audience.
We don't have any questions so far. I wonder if you have any questions that we haven't answered yourself, Gwen.
Somebody's got their hand up.
Someone raised their hand. I'm not sure.
If you'd like, you can type. There's a chat window at the bottom of your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar toolbar. If you'd like to type in a question, we'd be happy to answer that. Again, the whole point of this session obviously was to outline those questions at the beginning and address as many of them as we could.
I think sometimes people, if they're trying to think about ICD-10, it's sort of like, where do you start? Because there's so many unknowns in it.
Right.
Well, I think, the fact that you can go back during the 12-month period and refresh your memory is so critical, particularly on a course like this. So I think that's, most of the other courses that I reviewed, typically it's a 3 or at the most 6-month window. So the fact that it's 12 months, I think, is super beneficial.
Absolutely, and especially for something like this, the first time you go through the section on pregnancy, you may not think it's going to be part of your workflow, and then 3 months later you find out you need to know more about it. You can go back and review just that chapter and learn what you need to know. We do have a couple of questions that we'd like to answer. The first one is on the World Health Organization site. They offer a class, is it the same content? Now that's a great point because the World Health Organization sort of oversees ICD and has for a very long time. And people may or may not know that ICD-10 actually has been used around the world for a lot longer than it has in the United States. We fell behind a little bit. So the answer to your question is no, it is not the same class, certainly not. Does it cover the same content? Well, of course, it's all about the ICD-10 coding set, assuming that the link you're talking about addresses ICD-10-CM in the United States. That's another point we should make, is that there's two sections of ICD. There's the clinical modification, which is what essentially anyone in practice is going to use, and then there's a PCS set that is used in hospitals.
Right. And the second question we had was, does the certification have to be repeated in a year? This really is a bridge course, and where some of our courses, yes, are going to require you to repeat on an annual basis in order to maintain your knowledge set around this information as far as requirement goes. So for HIPAA would be one, and meaningful use obviously is updated on an annual basis. But for this particular course, the ICD-10 Bridge course, I would suggest that largely folks are taking this course in order to access and have immediate transition knowledge between that ICD-9 and ICD-10 code set. Will we potentially update and make modifications in year 2 to this course? That is possible, yes, because there may be some additional changes that come down the pipeline that we will notify students who have attended this year. We will notify them if there have been changes or updates in their second year, and at that point they may want to come back and recertify. But in lieu of that, my guess is that this is a fixed amount of knowledge. Yeah.
But yeah, for the moment, they've actually frozen ICD-10 so that people can just train on the same consistent set and get ready. Right. But in the future, they will make additional modifications, so we'll address that when those modifications come down the pipe. I'd like to just hop back to the World Health Organization really quickly, because I think it illustrates an important point, which is, you can download all of the manuals, including the coding guidelines that are all available for free. You can get all that stuff and go through it on your own if you'd like. I definitely don't recommend it because it's just an overwhelming amount of material.
Well, and what this course does that is unique in terms of walking the student through the learning process is it organizes that information and access to those manuals in such a way that you can actually learn and retain in making that transition between these coding sets.
Yes.
So I think that's the piece that yes, of course, I mean that's true of a lot of healthcare IT information like HIPAA. How many pages are there in the HIPAA regulations?
Well, just the omnibus final rule is 585 pages.
Right.
So with healthcare, so often it's that you're drinking from a fire hose. There's lots of information out there. The question is, what do I really need to know?
Right, exactly. And how do I hold on to it? And you're right, which pieces do I need to focus on?
Yeah.
So that's why taking a course like this that is self-paced and online and in bite-sized modules and set for attention and offers a certificate, the reason you choose to do that versus drinking from a fire hose is that it's a great way to make sure that you actually have attained a certificate or certification level of knowledge on that subject.
And then you can demonstrate that to either your current employer or to potential future employers. You can say, look, not only have I studied this stuff, I can demonstrate that I understand the content.
Exactly.
Right. Right.
So those were two
any
questions. So we
any other questions?
No, those were the two questions, which we very much appreciate, but we also are happy to take additional questions over our 800 number that you see on the screen right now, or via our live chat lines at formatapproved.com. Again, you can link through to the storefront with the appropriate discount code for Healthcare IT Central by going to healthcareitcentral.com, and they have a button right there that says certifications. And if you go to Gwen's site and you hit that button, you're going to get to her storefront, and there's going to be a category there for ICD coding, and that category contains this course. Feel free to peruse around that storefront and find additional information about other courses that we offer. And again, feel free to contact us in any of our accessible ways listed on the screen there, and we're happy to answer any of your questions.
Sounds good. I'd like to thank everyone for spending their lunchtime with us, and also quickly to invite you This webinar is the first in a series. Once a week for September and possibly in October, we're going to be highlighting one of the ForMed courses. So you can find that schedule on the homepage of healthcareittoday.com, and we hope to see you there.
Thanks, Gwen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.